The men's basketball team hosts Indiana tomorrow at 6 p.m. on ESPN. Badgers then travel to Champaign to take on Illinois on Sunday at 6:30 p.m. on BTN. Head coach Greg Gard is here. We'll have some opening comments and take questions.
Okay, I dressed up just for you guys. Just drop out of the sport code, just for you, Jeff and Tom. Actually just came from an overtime club luncheon. So with the game Thursday night, I felt that we did some good things at times. Obviously, to build a 16-point lead and then have a chance to expand it. There were some positive things that I took from it, and also things that we have to continue to get better at. I think a positive was getting to the free throw line 35 times was good. We've spent some time working on converting those in the last few days, a little bit at a higher rate, but also be able to handle the pressure in that situation, different lineups, guys out there. I thought we got a little bit better as the game went on against the zone, and did some pretty good things. Defensively, I thought until that stretch there at the end, where I think at one point they had 5 points in 13 possessions, where we had some miscommunications on some exchanges or switches, where we allowed shooters to get open. We allowed one shooter to dribble into a three. And then we fouled at times and let them score with the clock stop, which things as with the younger team, we're learning how to close out games, and that's not one thing you want to do is foul and allow them to chip into your lead with the clock stop. So it was very good teaching points from it, and hopefully we'll learn and as we go forward. And obviously with tomorrow night's game against Indiana, a team that's been on a roll, we saw what they could do at their place, and I thought we had chances there to be able to tie or if we would have converted better at the line and in the paint, hopefully maybe would have had a different outcome. But a team Tom's got them playing extremely well. I mean, they're very confident offensively, and they've improved defensively. They can surround Bryant with a lot of shooters. So they put a lot of pressure on you in terms of where you can help from, when you can help, when you cannot help. And obviously having a senior point guard as good as Yogi Ferrell is the engine that drives that whole machine. So it'll be a huge task for us again tomorrow night, but one we're looking forward to. And as I've talked to the team about over the last few days, I think you're better. I think you've improved. Now it's another opportunity for us to show it. So with that, we'll continue to prep for tomorrow night, and I will take your questions.
Greg, I think early on when you took over the team, you talked about getting an understanding about how to use certain guys as subs and get a feel for your substitution pattern. Where does that stand right now in your mind? How good you feel about when to put certain guys in and what moves to make during the game?
Yeah, I have a lot of confidence in Alex, as that's been well documented, and just in what he's done. And I used him sooner Thursday because he has such a good feel, instinctual feel against the zones, and he moves, and obviously his ability to stretch the floor and be able to shoot the ball. But he just has a nose for the ball, whether it's off the glass or whether it's finding gaps, those things, his ability to pass. And I think there's some strengths of his that he can build on as he goes forward. With Jordan, I think it's still, it's all about, with all of them, really, I've always emphasized this, it's about production. So if you practice well, the odds that you will play well are more in your favor. And I think that's one thing with everybody that I've really emphasized over the last 5 weeks or whatever it's been, that if you put value into practice, practice will put value into you, meaning it will make you better. And I don't think sometimes younger guys understand how important practice is and how important it is to practice well and practice the right way. So from that standpoint with Jordan, I think it's, when he plays well, he shows he can do some things really well. When he struggles in some areas, decision-making, then we need to step back and correct some things. So I think Aaron is doing a good job of giving us some minutes. I like where he's at intellectually, how he understands things and picks up on things. I think Charlie's practiced pretty well. And I thought Charlie, for the minutes he had at Penn State, played pretty well in that small amount given of time. So Khalil is, again, with Jordan Hill, when things are going well, it's really well. And then there's some things that he does at times where our freshman mistakes. The cross-court pass out of the corner was one of them. Just things like that he needs to continue to improve upon in decision-making. That will come with time and experience, and he saw that on film. But with all of them, I think it's still about if you practice well, the odds are you'll play pretty well, and it's not going to happen. It's not all of a sudden going to come on and you're not going to practice well. And then I've never seen anybody not practice well and then go play well. Very rarely does that happen. You have to form pretty good habits in practice.
Greg, kind of going off Jeff's question, your comfort level as a coach within a game? I know not having a ton of experience coming in, are you more comfortable now, and are you starting to get into a groove?
I've told people, and I've gotten this forewarning for years, that this transition, if it ever happens, wherever it would happen, would be astronomical. It'd be, oh my goodness, you're now slid over 18 inches or in a new seat. For me, it has been as natural and as easy. I don't know. I don't have anything to compare it to, but from my standpoint, I joked that with a few people around me that are close to me, I should have been doing this a long time ago. It's for me, it's been really, really natural. It's just I don't know why. Is it my experience over the years? I've had some pretty good mentors. I've been fortunate. You have a Hall of Famer in Coach Ryan who you get mentored by and watch, and it wasn't like I was living under a rock for 25 years. I've listened and I've watched, and I have binders upon binders of notes. And I know and still you step into it yourself, but you're always in that mode mentally, and then I have Coach Izzo and what he's done for me and how he's kind of guided me. I mean, you have input that I've taken from people over the years but always mentally was try to put myself in that position. So from my standpoint, I haven't asked anybody else, but it's been extremely normal and natural, and those are probably the two words to describe it the best.
Jeff?
Greg, you mentioned the free throws, working on some free throws the last couple of days. If I remember correctly, after the Northwestern game, didn't you give them an assignment to go home and shoot some like 100 free throws, whatever?
Right.
Is it just a matter of repetition with that to get guys to feel more comfortable so they don't miss some free throws like at Penn State late?
To me, free throws have always been mental, unless there's something really astronomically wrong with your technique. It's more about just mentally blocking out everything else and focusing and following your pattern or whatever you have up as a routine, and sticking to that all the time and not getting distracted from that. So we've done some other things with pressure situations the last few days of having them run and then having them go shoot free throws and different things where I put numbers on them to make more out of 10 or more out of 20 than normal. But again, it's still about just being mentally tough enough to stand there and knock them down. Because they're all, I think, have shown me that when they follow their technique the proper way, they're good enough to make a good enough percentage of them. The encouraging part for me is that we're getting there. That's a huge step in the right direction, because we've seen games when we don't and trends when we don't. So hopefully we'll continue to grow in that regard.
Brian?
What's it like for you emotionally after a game compared to when you were sitting 18 inches the other side?
More draining. You feel a little more, like you've gone 12 rounds. But for me, I always try to be pretty even-keeled emotionally, so I don't get too high when things are going really well, and you don't get too low when things don't go well. But it's because it's a 2-hour span where you're pretty laser focused, and you can't get too out of check emotionally, because what message does that send to your team? And I have to communicate with them every 4 minutes in those timeouts. So if I'm, I've lost my mind in that standpoint, then I'm not doing a good job of communicating and adjusting as we go on. And they've learned that I adjust and tweak things quite a bit in those timeouts. That dry erase board, they were kind of all shocked the first time they saw that pulled out. I said, no, Coach Gard, I'll use one of these, so get ready, pay attention. They don't drift off to sleep in the timeout, I'll tell you that. They're all locked in, so they never know what I might draw up there. Usually we practice what we do. I don't pull anything out of thin air. I usually make sure we at least have seen it before I go into my bag of tricks.
You mentioned the mentors that you had. Their, I guess, sideline mentality and the sideline, the way that they work the sideline, pretty much complete different, opposite than the way you do it. Is that intended, or is that just you being you?
I've always understood that I need to be myself. I need to coach my personality. I need to communicate to my personality. And there'll be times when I'm a little, blood pressure goes up a little bit more than others, but for the most part, I need to be myself. I can't pretend to be somebody else, nor should I, nor would I. It's not sending the right message, and it's not who I am. I've just tried to be, who I am, and I've told the players that from day one, that, I don't change. My role and responsibilities changes, as you've heard me say, but who I am and how I conduct myself and those things won't change.
And looking at film on Indiana, what has changed between when you played them to where they are now? Is it just confidence that in the way they're playing under Tom?
Yeah, and a newbie or an OG, number 3, has played really well. He's gotten better. I think they've gotten a little more production. Bryant has gotten better. Obviously Yogi has done even a better job of running the whole show. But they've all, I think, confidence is definitely a universal word you can use with everybody, but I've seen some individual improvement in guys too, and maybe it doesn't always show in numbers, but Bryant's more aggressive and more assertive inside, and like I said, OG he knocked down some threes against us, but he's also done that with against some other teams, and very aggressive to the glass with how they spread you out, and they're obviously the threat to shoot threes and the avenues they come to the glass with, and what they've done to Illinois, Northwestern, and Ohio State. They're at home. Obviously, it's just been it was just a landslide of an onslaught. So definitely a more confident team. I think a team that's grown individually and collectively over the last 2-3 weeks since we saw them.
Greg, looking at your free throw attempts the last couple of games, clearly you've emphasized attacking the rim, but what all goes into that other than you don't just say it at practice? What all goes into that?
Well, with changing some things offensively, we've tried to emphasize that more by putting people in those positions to be able to catch the ball in the paint. I affectionately probably call it the power of the paint, how good the paint can be to you. And we've done some things drill-wise, too. We've changed some things and added some things with post moves, with being more physical with bags and doing some one-on-one with the blocking bags and some one-on-one in the post. We've also done some driving line drills. We call it drive to score. I think it's not anything, I haven't invented anything new. It's just trying to emphasize things I see within the game, whether it be that we need to do better, we need to be better at, or things that I watch other teams do that are how the game has evolved, and then changing how we need to play and what we need to emphasize, both individually and collectively as a team. So I think there's been a more of an emphasis on throwing it inside, but also what do we get throw it inside is one thing, but then the ability to be able to finish and convert and have something positive come out of it is another thing. So our ability to finish in the paint has to continue to improve, and then as we get better, and more comfortable within what we do offensively, knowing when to drive and how to finish plays. And I think we're getting better at it. Nigel's gotten better at it. Showalter has been better at it in terms of really driving through contact and forcing teams to use their hands. If the officials are going to call that how the points of emphasis are going to be or have been, we had to try to use that to our advantage.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is it easier to drive from the perimeter these days with the new rules? Do you find that at all?
Well, if your spacing is good, I think that's one thing that's improved. Our spacing has become better, which has opened more alleys for us to drive. And we're starting, as we evolve more within the swing, of knowing when to and when not to, and there's avenues too. But I think that has, if you can catch teams either closing out improperly or late or over-aggressive, that's the time to really attack and trying to do it in straight lines because of how teams come to help so fast. You've got to make that decision and get there pretty quickly. The days of being able to really spend a lot of time with the ball, yo-yoing back and forth because of how teams flock to the ball, how we do it. You really have to pick and choose your spots and do more straight line attacking.
Anything else for Coach? All right. Thanks, Greg.
All right, well, good. Patrick, did you want to mention the shoe? As you may know, this is Suits and Sneakers Week. This might not be the exact shoe we're going to wear. We're still that's a work in progress. But you will see us this week, tomorrow night and Saturday or Sunday at Illinois with sneakers on. And obviously the whole Coaches versus Cancer campaign Obviously, for me personally, it takes on a whole new meaning at a whole new level this year. But also the yellow laces you'll see most college coaches wearing, I think, around the country. With Lacey Holsworth, the young lady or little girl who passed away a couple years ago, that was tight with and very close to Adrian Payne at Michigan State. This was one of her, I guess, her favorite color, along with the sparkles. So they've done some things through Shoe Carnival, right, Patrick, where they're selling these from now this week through the end of March, and proceeds are going to the American Cancer Society, and more specifically to pediatric cancer and cancer research. Yellow is the signal or the color for pediatric cancer, which is a cancer that's under-researched and underfunded. So if you see coaches with yellow laces this week or staff members, that's what that's about. So kind of a twofold effort there with Coaches versus Cancer with the Suits and Sneakers Week, and then obviously the laces trying to bring more awareness of pediatric cancer. Okay, thanks.